God and Father of all, we search for meaning in our living and in our dying, particularly when lives are cut short. On this day, our nation remembers the many who have died in the violence of war, putting themselves in danger so that all of us might enjoy the freedom you have given us and the freedoms we have secured in struggle. Hold close in your loving care all who have died in conflict. Help us to honor their memory by building peace at every opportunity, by carefully using the deadly force of arms only when necessary, and by living each day with a care for all our brothers and sisters in the human family. Amen.
If everyone would please remain standing, we'll have the Buena Park High School Air Force JROTC perform the posting of the colors.
Color guard, hope. Left, place. Close our intervals, move.
If I could have all the scouts and the Buena Park youth and cheer come along and help us, lead us in the pledge.
Freeze, Ed. Color.
And today we have James Hughes, Troop 1565, Eagle Scout 2010, to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'd like to invite Debbie Donnelly to the stage to perform the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. I'm the president of the American Legion Auxiliary in Buena Park, and Caroline is my first vice president, and we're going to do the POW MIA ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the empty table. You may have noticed the table set before you is filled with symbolism. I will explain. This table is set for our prisoners of war and those missing in action from all wars. They are not with us today. Their chairs are empty, but saved for their hoped return. Let us remember their absence. Let us remember the United States Air Force. Let us remember the United States Marine Corps. Let us remember the U.S. Army. Let us remember the U.S. Navy. And let us remember the U.S. Coast Guard. Let us remember the men and women prisoners of war from all branches of service that are too often forgotten. Let us remember them. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms, so that their children could remain free. Remember. The lone candle symbolizes the frailty of a prisoner alone trying to stand up against his oppressors. Remember. The black ribbon on the candle reminds us of those who will not be coming home. Remember. The single rose reminds us of the loved ones and families of our comrades in arms who keep the faith and await their return. Remember. There is salt on the plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait and remember. The glasses are inverted. They cannot toast with us tonight. Maybe tomorrow if we remember. The red, white, and blue ribbon is tied to the flower vase by a yellow ribbon that was worn by thousands who awaited their return. Remember. As we look upon this empty table, do not remember ghosts of the past. Remember our comrades. Remember those whom we depended on in battle. They depend on us to bring them home. Remember our friends. They are the ones we love, who love life and freedom as we do. They will remember what we do. Please honor and remember them today on this Memorial Day and every day.
Today we are here to honor those who sacrificed and died in our nation's service to secure our peace and freedom. It is important to not only recognize their service, but to respect their devotion to duty and ensure that the purpose for which they fought will never be forgotten. Too often we fail to remember those who gave their life or those whose lives today bear the scars as a lasting memory of that sacrifice and commitment. There are many who remember all too vividly, as the lives affected were those of mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, siblings, friends, co-workers, and neighbors, and that their unselfish sacrifice was made with the assurance that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness require the ultimate sacrifice for our great nation. On the cover of your program today is a photograph of a soldier from Buena Park, Specialist Christopher Fishbeck, who was killed in action June 6, 2011. This is a reminder so that we never forget the faces of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. Unfortunately, the Fishbeck family was not able to attend today, and I ask that we please keep their family in our thoughts and prayers every day. On the back of your program is a listing of the 18 service members from Buena Park lost from 1943 to 2011. Our city has suffered great loss many times, and today we are here to honor them and the many others who have paid with their lives for our freedom. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mayor Dr. Elizabeth Swith to the services, Council members Art Brown and his wife Chris, Councilmember Fred Smith and his wife Sharon, Councilmember Miller O and his wife, I'm so sorry. And Steve Berry is here with us as well. And now I'd like to invite Mayor Swift to the podium.
On behalf of the Buena Park City Council, I welcome you to the annual Memorial Day ceremony. The city and its service organizations are here at Bellis Park once again to honor those who sacrificed their lives during times of war, to thank God for their willingness to serve, and to celebrate the American ideals of liberty and justice for which they died. We had our State Senator Lou Correa with us a few minutes ago. He had to move on to another event, but it was so wonderful that he could come by and greet people here. And we also appreciate that our Congressman Ed Royce is here. And we have a spot on the stage for you, Mr. Royce, so if you want to join us up here, that'd be wonderful. Buena Park actually has 19 residents who did not return from war. There was one young man I didn't see on the list, Bob Lehman, who graduated from Buena Park High School the year before I did. And we added his name to our wall in December. But some of those listed were from World War II or Korea, Vietnam, and then the one more recently from Iraq, Christopher Fishbeck. So 19 names are etched on our memorial wall behind the Senior Center on Knott Avenue. I encourage you to visit that wall sometime, and while there, do, as Lorraine just suggested, pray for those families, because you see their loss continues even today. Yesterday at church, the pastor in his sermon reminded us that young men and women who gave up their lives in service before they had married and had children also gave up the lasting legacy of offspring and all the potential that those descendants might have had. I'm so thankful that my mother and father, who both served in the United States Army during World War II, lived through their service years so that my 4 siblings and I have had our lives to live and contribute in positive ways to our communities. But I also know, seeing those young men from Buena Park High School, it made me think, I also know there are 9 names on a memorial plaque at Buena Park High School, 9 young men who did not have the opportunity as my parents did to have children and grandchildren, and it's such a sobering and humbling thought. It is good for us to have this annual service, just one way of teaching our young ones the patriotic messages that are so important to retain our democratic way of life and to demonstrate thankfulness for our freedoms and for God's blessing. Children don't always understand these concepts. In 1996, a woman by the name of Carmela Laspada met a group of school children who were touring Washington, D.C. She asked them what Memorial Day meant to them, and they responded, "That's the day the pool opens." By the way, the pools in Buena Park don't open until Father's Day in June. The children's response showed a lack of understanding and appreciation for Memorial Day that distressed Mrs. Laspada, and it led to her creating the National Moment of Remembrance on Memorial Day. Along with all the activities that are so traditional on this day, the parades, barbecues, sales at local retailers, 10K races, and the opening of pools in some communities, she dreamed about having every American pause for just a moment at 3 p.m. local time. She thought if people would place their hands over their hearts or bow their heads, offer a prayer, and promise to live a good life in honor of those who gave their lives for our freedom, that children would see this and remember these examples of thankfulness. In the year 2000, Congress officially established the National Moment of Remembrance. And in his Memorial Day proclamation this year, President Obama stated, quote, "I, Barack Obama, President of the United States, do hereby proclaim Memorial Day, May 27, 2013, as a day of prayer for permanent peace. And I designate the hour beginning in each locality at 11 a.m. of that day as a time to unite in prayer. I also ask that all Americans observe the National Moment of Remembrance beginning at 3 p.m. local time on Memorial Day," unquote. As well as what we do here this morning, will you also pause today at 3 p.m. for the National Moment of Remembrance? It could be a great learning opportunity for your children and grandchildren. Recently, I read a book called Thanks, which presents research-based reasons why expressing one's gratitude and appreciation for others is so important. When people do that, they experience interpersonal, psychological, and even physical benefits. Ben Stein put it this way, "I cannot tell you anything that in a few minutes will tell you how to be rich, but I can tell you how to feel rich, which is far better. Be grateful. It's the only totally reliable get-rich-quick scheme." As we leave our children and grandchildren an inheritance of material things, let us also leave them the richer heritage of thankfulness for our country, for our country's freedoms, and for our fellow countrymen's service and sacrifice to keep us free. Have a wonderful and thankful Memorial Day.
Thank you, Mayor Swift. Today we have Congressman Ed Royce with us, and I believe he'd like to say a few words as well.
Well, I don't think I could be as profound as Beth Swift, the mayor of Buena Park, was. That was very heartfelt, and Beth, thank you very, very much for that sentiment on this day. And as we give thanks to those who made that ultimate sacrifice, those many who died and are buried in foreign lands, some brought back here, and unfortunately, as we know, many of them, we don't know where their final resting place. But what we do know is they gave the last full measure of devotion to this nation, gave that sacrifice so that we might be a free people. And that is why we are so thankful today. Not just for those who gave their lives, but our thoughts turn on this day also to those around the world serving in conditions which are unsettling, which are very unsafe, in which they face danger often on a daily basis. And we think of those young men and women who are serving this country. And we think, because many of them will be returning home soon from Afghanistan and from Iraq, as they return, we think about the necessity of how they're welcomed back and how we'll relate to them and how we'll assist them in new careers. And it was George Washington who first made that observation, and I'm going to quote him for a moment. He said, after the ending of the war, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." Those were the words of our first president. And today, on this day of remembrance, we do give thanks for all those who died for these freedoms. And I'm certain all of us will have done that by day's end. I'm certain all of us will reflect on the enormity of that sacrifice. I just wanted to take a moment, if I could, and recognize my father, Ed Roy Sr., who's with us today, and ask him to stand, if he will. He's a former mayor of Stanton, but thank you. During the Second World War, my father served with General Patton in the Third Army for a while and served in the Normandy campaign prior to that. But at the end of the war, as Seventh Army was making its way towards a prison camp called Dachau, when they liberated that camp, he had his brother's camera with him that day, and he took photographs of what he saw. And those photographs are now in the Holocaust Museum or Museum of Tolerance in Israel. But the enormity of what the GIs discovered as they broke into those death camps, the realization of people as well in extermination camps and in work camps, brought about, I think, for that generation, a realization of the fact that this United States does stand for an ideal of freedom, but we have some insights into what happens in the world when societies are based on the antithesis of the rights of the individual, on the antithesis of freedom, when societies are based upon a totalitarian construct, and what follows that. And it is indeed because of that understanding that so many have sacrificed for this nation. Lincoln made some observations at the end of at the Gettysburg Address, right after the battle that took the lives of probably the most Americans on a single day. And he said in that address, this is a new birth of freedom. This is a new birth of freedom in the United States. All men will be created equal was his point. But he said, he acknowledged that this was not an ultimate victory. He acknowledged the war. He knew the war was far from over. The conflict could still be lost. Our country could still be ripped apart. But there had been a victory that day. The country still lived because of that decisive victory. And with it, what he described as its great promise to all the people of the world for all time to come had been secured. And his unspoken point, as I said, was that nothing had been guaranteed, nothing made forever safe. It was up to those who came after them, who inherited the same duty and responsibility they had shouldered, to preserve what had been bought so dearly and pass it down through the centuries. For Lincoln knew that our country carries with it a conception of humanity unique in all of history, not simply for those of us fortunate to be Americans, but for mankind. As he said long ago, the momentous struggle was not just for the present. This momentous struggle is for the vast future also. And we're part of that vast future. And as he said, no victory is final. Our country, unfortunately, will find itself with enemies in the future. Unfortunately, we will face dangers even on the sunniest of days. And nothing is ever guaranteed. If our country is to live, it is up to us. It is important for us to remember the fallen. It's important for us to mourn them. We are grateful for what they gave us. And what they gave us was far more than a gift. They gave us a duty and a responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for our vast future as a people as well. And we do them the honor of reflecting on our responsibility for our beloved country and accepting our duty to preserve what we have been given and to ensure that those who come after us understand the meaning of what we have been given and understand and dedicate themselves to preserving that as well. Thank you very much for inviting me, Mayor, here on Memorial Day.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. And thank you to your dad for serving. We also have today Captain Gary Hendricks of the Buena Park Police Department. And I'd like to welcome him to the podium.
I am honored to stand before you on this important day, Memorial Day. Today, as we look around our great nation, we see how we mark this day through decorations and specifically with our country's flag. On a personal note, I honor my mother, who in 2002 was laid to rest in our National Cemetery in Riverside. She did not serve in the military. However, she was the wife of a soldier, United States Navy. As you know, we as a people and nation are defined by our actions. We depend on the action of our military and police to move forward toward danger and not away. Our military and police action have always been and will continue to be courageous. As with law enforcement, the women and men who serve in our military also put their lives on the line to protect our citizens here and abroad, and have also made the ultimate sacrifice for our great country that we live in. It's their duty to put their lives on the line, and it's our duty to honor and remember these heroes. We can never repay our courageous men and women, but we can recognize them today, every day, for their bravery. Today we honor all of our soldiers, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, those that continue to serve, and those that have served. To the men and women of our military, and on behalf of the City of Buena Park's Police Department, thank you for all that you do. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Captain. Today, as you can see when you arrived, we have our local firemen here with their truck. Representing Orange County Fire Authority, we have our local captain and crew, And I believe they're sitting along the back there. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming out and joining us today. And thank you for serving our city every day. And thank you to the police department for serving every day. It's exciting to see so many people from so many different groups and organizations out here to support this event today. It's very important that we take some time to remember those who have fallen and given their lives so that we can come out here and enjoy this day and say thanks to them. And now at this point in our program, we're going to have representatives from the different service organizations come forward with some special readings and poems honoring our service members.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Salazar, and I am representing the Noon Lions Club, and today I will be reciting to you General Pershing's 1919 address to the troops. My fellow soldiers, now that your service with the American Expeditionary Forces is about to terminate, I cannot let you go without a personal word. At the call to arms, the patriotic young manhood of America eagerly responded and became the patriotic formidable army whose decisive victories testified to its efficiency and its valor. With the support of the nation firmly united to defend the cause of liberty, our army has executed the will of the people with resolute purpose. Our democracy has been tested, and the forces of autocracy have been defeated. To the glory of the citizen soldier, our troops have faithfully fulfilled their trust, and in succession of brilliant offenses have overcome the menace to our civilization. As an individual, your part in the world war has been an important sum total of our achievements. Whether keeping lonely vigil at the trenches or gallantly storming the enemy's stronghold, whether enduring monotonous drudgery at the rear or sustaining the fighting line at the front, each has bravely and efficiently played its part. By the willing sacrifice of personal rights, by cheerful endurance of hardship and privation, by vigor, strength, and the indomitable will made effective by thorough organization and cordial cooperation, you inspired the war-worn Allies with new life and turned the tide of threatened defeat into overwhelming victory. With consecrated devotion to duty and the will to conquer, you have loyally served your country. By your exemplary conduct, a standard has been established and maintained, never before attained by any army. With mind and body as clean and strong as the decisive blows you delivered against the foe, you are soon to return to the pursuits of peace. In leaving the scenes of your victories, may I ask you to carry your high strength ideals and continue to live as you have served, an honor to the principles for which you have fought and to the fallen comrades you leave behind. It is with pride in our success, and I extend to you my sincerest thanks for your splendid service to the Army and to the nation. Faithfully, John J. Pershing, Commander-in-Chief. Thank you.
I wasn't expecting that. I'd also like to recognize we have in our crowd Orange County Supervisor John Morlock. John Morlock is with us today. Thank you for being here, sir, very much. And next up we have Miss Buena Park Castidi.
Good morning. Today I will be reading Decoration Day. Sleep, comrades, sleep and rest on this field of the grounded arms, where foes no more molest, nor sentry shot alarms. Ye have slept on the ground before, and started to your feet, at the cannon, sun and roar, or the drum's redoubling beat. But in this camp of death, no sound your slumber breaks. Here's no fevered breath, no wound that bleeds and aches. All is repose and peace, untrampled lies the sod. The shouts of battle cease, it is the truce of God. Rest, comrades, rest and sleep, the thoughts of men shall be, as sentinels to keep your rest from danger free. Your silent tents of green we deck with fragrant flowers. Yours has the suffering been, the memories shall be ours. Thank you.
is Shelley Brown. I'm from the Optimist Club of Buena Park. I will be saying, I saw them standing there. I saw them standing there, images not made of flesh or sand or wood or brass. They were saying, I'll come home and be with you. If only time would not have passed. I saw them standing there, reaching as to touch, to set my hand to greet them, but I felt the slab and such. I saw them standing there, in uniforms all tattered and torn. There is a barrier, polished stones and names, for which I was not worn. I saw them standing there in the sunlight, shining so bright, the reflection of the presence was even in my sight. I saw them standing there, not hearing their silent cries. It's hard to hear them when we pray with our prayerful sighs. It is not often you hear from one who did not fall. I was there. I saw them beyond the living wall. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Baron Knight. I'm the current president of the Rotary Club of Buena Park. And my father served 30 years Marine Corps. He served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And the ideals that he instilled in me, I guess he could be considered just an example of the average soldier. So I wrote a poem to express those ideals. It's called Proud to be an American. Proud to be an American, made strong by our love for liberty, thankful for our waves of grain, and inspired by mountain's majesty. Our love of God, our love of country, our love for our fellow man, the souls of our founding fathers are the bedrock upon which we stand. Proud to be an American, futures built on hope and not on fear. The right to live in peace and freedom are the ideals to which we adhere. No hesitation, no lack of will, but knowing right from wrong, standing together against the wind, has made Americans strong. Proud to be an American, though at times our country may falter, the primrose path to the rainbow's end, but our heritage we cannot alter. We strive for truth, we strive for justice, ensuring that we remain free, self-sacrificing for our country's future and our children's liberty. Proud to be an American, honoring those who have given their all. Prayer-filled praise we thankfully give for those answering heaven's call. Now standing in the palm, now with love and now with peace, now standing in the palm of God's hand. No sacrifice will ever be in vain when freedom is our stand. Proud to be an American, the spirit of our fallen will live for and forever, residing in our hearts and into the future, with our souls bound together. Tears are shed, bodies laid to rest. Fallen hearts have always fought for a world where we mark time by the years of peace and not by the years of war. I am proud to be an American.
At this time, I'm very excited to introduce the first of our two military guest speakers here with us today. Kyle Mormon is a Marine Corps NCO veteran and current staff sergeant with the 250th Military Intelligence Battalion. A native of South Bend, Indiana, Kyle enlisted in 2003 at the age of 18. As an infantryman in the Marine Corps, Kyle served three combat tours in Iraq with 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines out of Camp Pendleton. As a Marine, he rose to the rank of sergeant and served in some of the most intense fighting in Iraq, including the Battle of Fallujah. Kyle also served as a defense contractor in Afghanistan, training Marines and civilians in intelligence and operational systems. He is the founder and CEO of Moreman Inc., a leading provider of veteran-led business solutions in the Southern California region. He has also led local and nationwide initiatives to assist transitioning servicemen and women find employment in the private sector. And finally, Kyle is married to Marine Corporal Teresa Mormon of Oceanside, who is currently serving in Afghanistan. If we could please give a warm welcome to Staff Sergeant Kyle Mormon.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Across our nation this Memorial Day, our citizens and veterans will gather to pay homage to America's finest men and women who gave their lives in defense of freedom. Honored will be those who gave what Abraham Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion in the fight for our liberty. It's worth noting that our nation was at war 230 years ago as the American Revolution ended in 1783, and it was 200 years ago when our soldiers were dying on the battlefield in the War of 1812. It was 150 years ago in 1863, after the greatest battle ever fought on American soil, that Lincoln uttered the words of the Gettysburg Address as our nation dedicated a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives so our nation might live. 70 years ago, more Americans were dying in World War II. In 1953, we ended the Korean War. In 1973, we ended the Vietnam War. In 1991, we ended Desert Storm, and in 2011, we ended Operation Iraqi Freedom, and perhaps next year, we end the fighting in Afghanistan. Wars are not without their glory. They are not without heroes, but they bring such wretched loss of loved ones. As a man deeply affected by this loss, Lincoln said, "We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain." Our nation is richly populated in cemeteries for our veterans. In private cemeteries, both large and small, and no matter how remote, are the stones and markers on the last resting places of the men and women who Lincoln called these honored dead. Further, he said it was the job of the living to take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure. Therein lies the key to the underlying reason to honor our nation's war dead. We here, living today, have them to thank. The saying that they have gave all their tomorrows so that we could have our todays is certainly most true on Memorial Day. Lincoln knew even more the heavy burden of that responsibility. He said at Gettysburg that we can never forget what they did here. Lincoln went on to say it is the living who must complete the promise of the founding principles of our nation. More than 1.2 million Americans, men and women, have perished as a result of military conflicts. Some of that number were friends of mine. Because of them, we are able to live in a free society that even our most desperate enemies can admire. Who knows what these men and women could have attained? We will never know what was lost, but without a doubt, many were destined to have a major impact on our lives and our society. Their skills, knowledge, ideas, and the very uniqueness of their individuality were forever lost to us. Today we take time to mourn the loss of these fine men and women, and as well those who have passed on their military service has ended. We mourn our most recent losses along with their families, and we are proud of our ancestors who are now family heroes. We recount their contributions even though we may have never known them. We remember them as those who have done so much to make this country great. Apologize. The men and women we honor today were real people. Sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, and wives and husbands. They were strong and vibrant. They loved and were loved, and they are missed. Today is not about celebrating the beginning of the summer season or holiday from work. Today is a solemn day of remembrance, a day that should be properly set aside for contemplation. Ask yourself, where would you be without the personal sacrifices made by these men and women? That is why I want to extend my sincere thanks to each of you who decided to come here today. You do not take your freedom for granted. Its price is well known to you. By being here today, you are setting an example for others. And at the same time, you remembering those that many of our finest young Americans are still serving in harm's way. At Gettysburg, Lincoln also remembered those soldiers who survived the battle and the war when he said, "The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, consecrated that cemetery far more than any others." We who make it home carry heavy burdens. We know we must fight to honor those fallen, and we know living life to the fullest in spite of severe injuries or illness is our new mission. Our family's burdens and ours can be extreme. In fulfilling Lincoln's promise to care for him and shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan is perhaps the most fitting way we can honor those who never made it home. Before I close, I want to make one last point. At no time in our nation's history has our country depended more on women veterans. With women making up 17% of those serving, they are in harm's way. My wife, Corporal Teresa Mormon, now serving in Afghanistan, is among that number. With recent Department of Defense regulations, even more will enter the fray as frontline troops. Now is the time for our nation to serve and honor them equally. Our military and veterans health care facilities are now working to make medical care more accessible to women. Women are getting greater recognition for their service from their government and their people. But our nation must develop new and innovative programs to care and comfort the women of war. We must prepare to care for both he and she who have borne the battle. Thank you again for coming today, for your love of country, and for your dedication to honoring the men and women who defend our nation, past and present. May God bless America, the men and women who have fulfilled their promise to serve us, and today, especially those who have fallen in that service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler, for sharing with us today. And I think we all can agree that we're honored to have you here with us today. And thank you so much for serving this great nation.
I watched a flag pass by one day. It fluttered in the breeze. A young Marine saluted it, and then he stood at ease. I looked at him in uniform, so young, so tall, so proud. With hair cut square and eyes alert, he'd stand out in any crowd. I thought how many men like him had fallen through the years, how many died on foreign soil, how many mothers' tears, how many pilots' planes shot down, how many died at sea, how many foxholes were soldiers' graves. No, freedom is not free. I heard the sound of taps one night when everything was still. I listened to the bugler play and felt a sudden chill. I wondered just how many times that taps had meant amen, when a flag had draped a coffin of a brother or a friend. I thought of all the children, of the mothers and the wives, of fathers, sons, and husbands with interrupted lives. I thought about a graveyard at the bottom of the sea, of unmarked graves in Arlington. No, freedom is not free.
My name is Christiana Saltz. I'm with the Women's Club of Buena Park, and I'm honored to be up here. I'm going to start at the beginning with just a little bit of the Gettysburg Address, but we've already had excellent interpretations by our first speaker and our Congressman Ed Rice. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. It's been 1 year since a Buena Park icon, a fine lady who has since slipped the surly bonds of earth, stood up here and recited Abraham Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address without a hitch. Yes, I'm speaking of Donna Bagley, and you do have a picture of her and a history of her in the program. Thank you, Lorraine. Donna prided herself on being able to recite the Gettysburg Address from memory at this annual Memorial Day event. You'll also, by the way, see her picture when her wreath is brought up by Cynthia Thacker and Dr. Ida Pinella. Donna was a student of history. When she was 94, she went on a trip back east to the Civil War area, traveling from Tennessee to Charleston, Atlanta, and Savannah. They viewed the cemeteries, forts, and battlefields of the Civil War. In Atlanta, she visited the grave of her great-uncle, Jim Lang, who was in Sherman's army as they walked to the sea. On that forward march, they killed and scorched everything along a 60-mile wide swath. When Donna was less than 10 years old, great-uncle Lang had shared this story with the young ones in the family and expressed regret for how destructive a march it had been. Well, November 19th of this year, Just past Veterans Day, it will be the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. I spoke with a good friend of my daughter, Carrie, named Amber, who is an aficionado of Civil War history, and asked what the address means to her. Here's what she stated. It reminds us of what America is about, the soldiers giving their last full measure for the cause of freedom. Also, it reminds us that though at times we are divided, we always come together to honor those who gave their lives. I often read the address to think of what America stands for, that we the people are the government, and it is our job to keep it free. It's a reminder to us today. Now, I noticed when Lincoln wrote the Gettysburg Address, he used the word dedicate 5 different times in his composition. Perhaps we ought to consider dedicating ourselves to reading over this piece of history and contemplating it between now and Veterans Day, and by our actions towards one another to help promote liberty and freedom within our families and circles of influence. Donna would be proud of us, I think, if we tried to apply the ideas that Lincoln spoke of in our own lives. After all, in the last sentence, Lincoln wrote, and you may join me if you wish in this, it's about 8 lines up from the bottom, and it starts with the word it. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that those dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Anthony Tapia from the Royal Order of the Moose 1945 and the Women of the Moose 828. I'm reading Memorial Day. As we stand here looking at our flags upon these graves, know these flags represent a few of the true American brave. They fought for their country as the man has through all of time, except these soldiers lie here, fought for your country and mine. As we gather here to pay them our respect, let's pass this word to others, is what they would expect. I'm sure they would do it if it were you or me, to show we did not die in vain, but for the red, white, and blue. Let's pass on to our children and to those who never knew what these soldiers died for. It's at least we can do. Let's not forget their families, great pain they had to bear, losing a son, a father, or a husband. They need to know we still care. No matter which war was fought, on the day they died, I stand here looking at these flags filled with American pride. So as the bugler plays out taps with its sweet, eerie sound, pray for these soldiers lying here in this sacred, hallowed ground. Take home with you a sense of pride. You were here Memorial Day, celebrating the way Americans should on the solemnest of days. Thank you.
And now the Buena Park Community Chorus will perform the Armed Forces Medley. Whoa. I would like to ask that all of the active duty and retired military members in our audience to please stand and be recognized when you hear your service song. that exciting? I'd just like to ask all of you who have served one more time to stand up, and all of us to give them another round of applause for their service. Thank you so much, everybody. Woo! I'm excited to introduce our next military guest speaker today. Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Spike Westcamp is currently the Vice Wing Commander of the 163rd Reconnaissance Wing, where he is currently supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. Previous assignments include Vice Wing Commander, Operations Group Commander, and Maintenance Commander for an F-16 wing. He has 2,900 hours in an F-16 as a command instructor pilot, mission commander, and functional check pilot. He has led combat sorties while deployed to Southwest Asia on multiple deployments. He has also done extensive counter-drug work while deployed to Panama. He has flown and trained with the Israel Air Force, German MiG-29s, the Singapore, British, German, Japanese, and Austrian Air Forces. Colonel Westcamp is trained with the Argentine Air Force, where he was asked to be an ambassador for the United States Air Force.
Good morning. I remembered when Congressman alluded to blue skies, and I'll try to keep it together for my Vietnam friends, because I'm going to speak about my Uncle Robert. But when you talked about blue skies, I remember three. The morning of 9/11, and that was the morning that I was scheduled to fly a 767 out of Boston. And I dropped that trip a week before. And on that very same morning, I was called to fly an F-16 over San Francisco and intercept my own company's airplanes. That was the one blue morning. 6 months later, I went to United Airlines and I said, I need some time off because I need to do what that staff sergeant did and help my company, or my country. And when I'm done, I'll come back. And United's been very gracious to let me stay gone. And the third blue sky, I remember, Congressman, is when they allowed me to go going down the runway for the first time into Iraq. And I don't know why I remember a blue sky, but Chaplain, that was the first morning I started saying every single day, I was putting on the armor of God with Ephesians, that they spoke about in Ephesians 6. And I do that every day to protect myself. And I appreciate what you do for us. But I'd like to speak about my Uncle Robert. And I think it's Caroline, or Carol. Thank you very much for the remembrance over here, because I'd like to remember my uncle. And that's the hardest ceremony to go through and to listen, especially if you've lost friends in combat. It was 1967, April 27th. My father was in a KC-135 tanker, and his brother was flying a 105, and they were flying on the same mission. And my uncle, his wingman was shot down by a surface-to-air missile. So he stayed to provide coverage for his friend and his comrade. And he did so at great peril. And after he had exhausted all the ammunition he had on the airplane to defend his friend, critically out of fuel, so he called for help. And his brother, my father, was there to help. So they flew up into North Vietnam, and he refueled his brother, and he went back in to do the same thing. And he was shot down and captured and spent time in Hanoi, and he's one of 18 guys in there. Never came back. So I remember, and I'm grateful to all of you here today for also remembering them and friends that we've lost in combat, because I know we have, and we're brothers in arms. And I just appreciate all of you being here today. I remember.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Reddick. I'm with Solomon Staircase Masonic Lodge. I'll be reading What Heroes Gave. Each donned their uniform to be defenders of our liberty. Their mission sure, their spirits bright. Guard freedom's hill, be brave to fight. One final day each faced their call. Each gave their best, enduring all. We'll never know what they went through, but know they loved this country true. Deep down inside, we should all feel what heroes gave, their cost so real. We must stay thankful, grateful of the gift of freedom through their love. Their loved ones bore the gravest pain. What we can't know, some now sustain. To God I pray their pain will cease, and each will find long-lasting peace. Remember this from year to year, what heroes gave shan't disappear. We'll never let their special day, their time for honor slip away. These brave fought for a nation free. If not for them, where would we be? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jesse Lawrence, and I'll be reading Soldier. I was that which others did not want to be. I went where others feared to go, and what others failed to do. I asked nothing of those who gave nothing, and reluctantly accepted the thought of eternal loneliness should I fail. I have seen the face of terror, felt the stinging cold of fear, and enjoyed the sweet taste of a moment's love. I have cried, pained, and hoped, but most of all, I have lived times others would say were best forgotten. At least someday I will be able to say that I was proud of what I was, a soldier.
Okay, my name is Tomas Franceschi. I am the Cable Navigator for Bishop San Juan Capistrano Assembly, Knights of Columbus, 4th degree. I'm reading The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates of her tombstone from beginning to end. He noted that first came the date of her birth. He spoke of the following dates with tears. But he said what mattered most was the dash between those years. For the dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth. And not only those who love her know what little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So to think about this long and hard for those things you would like to change. For you never know how much time is left. That's still time to rearrange. Who could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel. It is less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that these special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spend your dash? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Hughes, a past graduate of St. Pius V School. Unfortunately, Jacqueline couldn't be here to read her award-winning patriotic pen essay, so I'm here on her behalf to read it for her. If I met the Founding Fathers. America is independent. America is free. If we didn't have the Founding Fathers, our country probably wouldn't be anything close to what it is today. The Founding Fathers were a group of 55 men who wanted to make an America. They did a lot of amazing things to create this country. This wasn't an easy process, though. They had to deal with many hardships, but still ended up reaching their goals. These men signed the Declaration of Independence, wrote the Bill of Rights, and most importantly, granted our country freedom. This group of men is important because without them we wouldn't have an America, a strong, free, and independent country. I'm glad the Founding Fathers were who they were, determined men who had the courage to free our country. If I had the honor to meet the Founding Fathers, I would tell them how much of an importance they are in American history. If I had the chance to meet the Founding Fathers in person, I would thank them for molding America into what it is today. We are free and have many rights that people in other countries don't have. I am able to have an education, which is very important to me. Other girls in some countries don't have the privilege to go to school. We have rights such as freedom of speech and freedom of religion. We are allowed to voice our opinions and choose to practice any religion we want to. Other countries aren't as lucky, though. Without the Founding Fathers, we wouldn't be the great country we are today. The second thing I would tell the Founding Fathers would be that you men did a great job founding America. If they didn't do what they did for our country, we probably wouldn't be the amazing country we are today. We have many rights and aren't ruled by another country. They did a fantastic job on the Bill of Rights. If we didn't have the Bill of Rights, we wouldn't be a very free country. Our country is very independent because of these phenomenal men. I applaud and thank the Founding Fathers of America. I am proud to call America my home. Thank you.
And now, if all the groups who will be presenting a wreath could please proceed to the back to your wreaths to prepare for the roll call of the deceased.
Good morning. My name is Judy Foley, and I am the exalted ruler of Buena Park Emblem Club, Elks Lodge, and the president of the Emblem Club. And it is now my pleasure to read the roll call of the departed. From the city of Buena Park, the soldiers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. George S. Bobo, Army, 1943. Charles W. Edwards, a Marine, 1951. Walter E. Herman III, Marine, 1966. Ronald C. Crapo, Marine, 1967. Christopher Herndek, Army, 1967. Daniel J. Holcomb, Army, 1967. Sammy Varela, Jr., Army, 1968. Larry D. Butler, Marine, 1968. Marcel A. La Rochelle, Army, 1968. Stephen A. Summers, Army, 1968. Glenn L. Sparks, Army, 1969. Paul E. Wall, Navy, 1969. Theodore F. Vedra, Army, 1970. Jackie L. Denny, Marine, 1971. William Ruiz, Jr., Marine, 1971. Paul C. Stewart, Army, 1971. Roy D. Brown, Army, 1989. And Christopher B. Fishbeck, Army, 2011.
Robert Lehman, Marine, 1969.
Robert Lehman, Marine, 1969. For the city staff, there was none provided. For the City of Buena Park Police Department, no deceased. For the Orange County Fire Authority, 2012-2013, Stein Jensen, John Lawrence, Robert Lawrence, Gerald Logan, John Sleppy. For the Buena Park Fire Department, 1960 to 1994. Captain Leo Banks, Chief Robert Brander, Jack Burke, Dale Bird, who died on an active fire, Lee Chamberlain, Rich Connor, Bud Dillon, Gil Fetchner, Robert Haggard, Captain James House, William McGill, Captain Thomas Nagler, Frank Negast, Al Schneider, he was the dispatch of communications, Captain Tom Swartz, Nicholas Smith, Kirby Turner, Fire Chief William Verbeck, and Captain Harry Woodworth. For the American Legion Post 354, David E. Crawford, Francis Hardesty, Richard Kowalski, Henry Lively, Ray Martinez, George Ramos, Thomas Tyler. And for the American Legion, there was auxiliary, there was none. For the community chorus, Lyle Rollins. For the Buena Park Elk Lodge, Darrell Squires, William Rule, Past Exalted Ruler, Richard Krieger, John Lyons, Lyle Rollins, Jerry O'Brien, Frederick Ridgway, Paul Varley, Donald Knapp, and Tom Gonzalez, and the Emblem Club had no deceased. For the Buena Park Noon Lions, no deceased. For the Knights of Columbus, Elias Pete Perez, Past Grand Knight Anthony Pannone, Past Grand Knight Jerome St. Duran, Salvador Riviera, David Aguilar, Don Knapp. For the Mission San Juan Capistrano 4th Degree Assembly, Antonia Cepeda, Robert Downey, Carl Engel, Donovan Knapp, Anthony Pannone, Salvador Riviera, Jim Steele. For the Loyal Order of the Moose, 1945, William Carpenter, Alan Charleston, James Cadet, Calvin Sam Houston, Anthony Minden, John Murphy, Michael O'Brien. And for the Women of the Moose, 828, Betty Burton, Irene Cedillo, and Donna Honey. For the Optimist Club, there was no deceased. The Rotary Club was no deceased. For Solomon Staircase, Masonic Lodge 357, Michael Buchanan, Wade Faircloth, Francis Lee Hardesty, Robert Harper, Dennis Earl Holder, Melvin L. Hunter, Harley K. Johnson, Jack Edward Kruger, Robert Lamb, Jimmy Lane, William Morton Farron Jr., Albert Richmond, Patrick Schultz. For For the Seroptimus International, there were no deceased. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 8954, Jack Giles, George Ramos, Leon J. Swindle. For the Veterans of Foreign Wars Auxiliary was Irene Cedillo. For the Women's Club, our sweet Donna Blake.
And we have Manuel Bahina and Emily Valdez with us here today to play taps and echo.
You have heard the tolling of 11 strokes. This is to impress upon you that with us, the hour of 11 has a tender significance. Wherever an elk may roam, whatever their lot in life may be, when this hour falls upon the dial of night, the great heart of elkdom swells and throbs. It is the golden hour of recollection, the homecoming of those who wander, the mystic roll call of those who will come no more. Living or dead, elks are never forgotten, never forsaken. Morning and noon may pass them by. The light of day sink heedlessly in the west, but ere the shadows of midnight shall fall, the chimes of memory will be pealing forth the friendly message to our absent members.
Good morning. My name is John Muller. I'm the District 2 Commander for the Veteran of Foreign Wars California Department and also the Post Commander for 8954 here in Buena Park. And I would like to say, as we prepare to close our Memorial Day service, it's my honor to say thank you to all of the veterans present, to all those that couldn't be here for whatever the reason, and to all those that we will never have the privilege of their presence. May I see the hands or have you stand if you're a veteran from World War II, please. You have been called part of the greatest generation. You fought the war to end all wars. We thank you for preserving our country's way of life, for defending our right to free speech, religion, and other rights to include voting. Whether we like the outcome, we have the right to do it. And that is very, very important. Ask the individuals that have fought for us in Iraq and Fallujah how voting is important. To you, we again say thank you for your service and welcome home. May I see the hands or have you rise if you are a veteran of Korea at any time, please. To those that participated in Korea, you were not issued a badge or handcuffs, and as you and I know, it was not a police action, but a war. You were not welcomed home with the big brass band as those that fought in World War II. And it took over 50 years to have a memorial to all of who fought there, both the living and the dead. To you again we say thank you for your service and welcome home. At this time, may I see the hands or have you stand if you're a veteran of Vietnam. And stand with pride. To those that did their job in Vietnam, it was called an unpopular war and protested by our fellow Americans. But really, which one was popular? Not only were you not welcomed home, but you were insulted when you got back. Insults of various natures were yelled, screamed, thrown, or spat upon. If you were in uniform, and this you did not deserve, as all the other veterans, you were where you were told to go, you did what you were told to do, and you worked hard to live to make it home. To you, we apologize for the reception you received, and we extend a hearty thank you for your service, and welcome home. And to continue to our other veterans who have selected our country, who were served our country and continue to call to arms, whether it be Panama, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, the USS Cole, the USS Liberty, Desert Storm or Desert Shield, Battle of Fallujah, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and others, too numerous to specifically list. We thank you for what you had to do and go through, the IUDs, the suicide bombers, and the other combat actions we can't and won't discuss. To you, we also thank you for your continued commitment to our country, our people, and our way of life. We thank you for your service and welcome home. And with the tears you saw from two of our veterans today, contrary to what some people have said about our military over the years, we are not cold-hearted. We're not bloodthirsty. We had a job to do, and it was important, and we remember those we've lost. Thank you.
Our land has been truly blessed and honored with service members who have given their lives to ensure that we have the freedom to enjoy the blessings given us by God and assured in liberty by the vision of our founding fathers. The men and women who serve and who have served in the armed forces are no less committed to protecting our nation than were the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. Their final words declare that, for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Our armed forces continue to maintain that same standard of commitment and honor that was declared more than 2 centuries ago. On this Memorial Day, pause to reflect on just what has been given and sacrificed so freely so that freedom could ring across this great land. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Father Ted back up to lead us in a closing prayer.
May the Lord bless this day, which we enjoy in the company of our families and our neighbors. May God bring consolation to all who grieve the loss of those who have sacrificed themselves to preserve and defend our freedoms. May God comfort the families of the missing as they continue to live in hope. May the Lord bless us and our leaders with wisdom to use our freedom well in building understanding and peace. May God give everlasting peace to our beloved dead, whose sacrifice we honor this day. Amen.